Some businesses don't just last decades, they survive for centuries, standing the test of time through wars, economic crashes, and changing civilizations. Today, we're going to count down the top 15 oldest companies in the world. Let's start with number 15, Suen Tea, Japan, 1160 AD. Suen Tea, which is an Uji city in Kyoto, holds the record for being the oldest tea house that's still in operation in all of Japan, with a history dating back over 850 years. First opened in 1160, it's been serving high-quality Japanese tea for generations, and found near the famous Uji Bridge, it served countless people, from ancient samurai and emperors to modern-day tourists. The tea house was founded by Suen Masahisa, who was a samurai that became a tea master after setting down his sword. He opened the shop during the Heian period, and it's been run by his descendants for over 24 generations. The tea house has been there so long that it's seen the rise and fall of shogunates, the arrival of Portuguese and Dutch traders, and Japan's modernization. With all of these changes around it, though, it's remained very much how it has been, and it's a place that preserves the tradition of Japanese tea. It's played a leading role in promoting tea from the region, and it specializes in matcha, sencha, and gyokuro, which are three of Japan's favorite types of green tea. The tea house is able to source its leaves from top-tier farms, so if you want to try the best of the best, this is the place to go. But with this reputation, it means that Suen Tea is still going after more than 8 centuries. The current structure, which was built in the Edo period around 350 years ago, has traditional wooden architecture, and with views out across the Uji River, it's a wonderfully calming and relaxing place. With a variety of premium teas and products on offer, you can also take part in traditional tea ceremony here, where you'll see for yourself the importance of the careful preparation of Japanese green tea and how much of a difference it really does make. Number 14, Mayu-Ching, China, 1153 AD. Mayu-Ching's Bucket Chicken House, which is in Kaifeng in Henan Province, is China's oldest known restaurant, with a continuous history dating back to 1153 during the Jin Dynasty. Throughout this time, the place has survived wars, the changes of dynasties, and modernization, but throughout all of that, it's kept true to its deep-rooted Chinese culinary traditions. It's most famous for its signature bucket chicken. This restaurant still uses its historic recipes, although having adapted to the modern taste to give wide appeal. It was opened by the Ma family and soon became popular because of its roasted poultry and its unique way of preparing bucket chicken with a tender texture and perfect seasoning. To do this, whole chickens are slow cooked in a sealed bucket, allowing the meat to absorb the flavors while remaining juicy. The cooking process combines steaming and roasting, and during this time a series of secret marinades and spice blends are added to create something truly mouth-watering and authentic. The choice of location was equally important to the long-term success of Mayu-Ching's, as the city of Kaifeng was one of China's ancient capitals that was a major trade center during the Song Dynasty. This means the restaurant had a steady flow of locals, traveling merchants, and government officials looking for a tasty and nourishing meal. And as they passed through, they took work of their experience there, and the Ma family's reputation grew as they refined their techniques. Today, you can enjoy a meal here like countless people have throughout history, and while still being open as a restaurant, it's also become a landmark in its own right. Visitors come from across China and the rest of the world to taste its legendary dishes and experience it for themselves, and it's certainly an experience that won't disappoint. Number 13, Sudo Honke, Japan, 1141 AD. Sudo Honke, which can be found in Kasama City in Ibaraki Prefecture, is Japan's oldest sake brewery, with a history dating back to 1141. For almost 900 years, the Sudo family has been producing high-quality sake with ancient brewing techniques and recipes, making it the most authentic version you can buy. It was founded during the late Heian period, and since then it's been operated by the same family for 55 generations, making it one of the oldest family-owned businesses in the world. Beyond being able to grow rice in the right proportions, water quality is crucial in sake brewing, and Sudo Honke has access to pristine underground water sources which help it achieve that smooth and refined taste. Even with passing wars, natural disasters, and economic changes, the brewery has been protected, and no matter how uncertain things may have seemed in the country, it's continued to produce some of the best sake with traditional brewing methods. One of the brewery's most famous sake brands is Sato no Homare, which means village honor, and it's Junmai Daijinjo, which is a premium category of sake that's known for its delicate aroma, smooth texture, and balanced flavor. Along with the best ingredients, the brewery uses Kyoto and Yamahai brewing styles. This relies on natural fermentation techniques as opposed to using artificial additives like the cheaper mass-produced sakes do. But, of course, it does mean it's more expensive and more difficult to get a hold of than others. But if you ever have the chance to try it, it's well worth it. And if you're in Kasama City, you should go for sake tastings and learn more about the brewing process because it's a fascinating journey into Japan's past. Number 12. The Old Bell, UK, 1135 AD. The Old Bell in Hurley, Berkshire, is one of the oldest continually operating hotels and pubs in the United Kingdom, dating back to 1135. It was originally opened as a guest house for monks from the nearby Benedictine Priory, and it's gone on to serve travelers, royalty, and even host important secret meetings for nearly 900 years. The inn was built as part of Hurley Priory, which was the nearby monastery, and its name, Old Bell, comes from the sanctuary bell that was rung to let monks know that guests were arriving. Even after the dissolution of the monasteries in the 16th century under Henry VIII, the Old Bell was allowed to continue operation as a public house and as an important stop for travelers on their way between London and Oxford. Over the years, the inn has found itself at the center of a number of major historical events. It was, for example, rumored to have been the meeting place for King John's knights before the signing of the Magna Carta in 1215. During the English Civil War, it was believed that both royalist and parliamentarian forces used it as a rest stop. And in later centuries, the inn became known as a place for spies and secret meetings, particularly in the 1688 Glorious Revolution, when plots to overthrow King James II were allegedly organized. There have, of course, been many renovations in the almost 900 years of being open, but the Old Bell still has much of its medieval charm, with timber beams, inglenook fireplaces, and antique furnishings. Today, though, it's a luxury inn, pub, and restaurant, and it's by far the most historic place you can stay in the country, being right where so many decisions have been made that influence the direction of the entire country. Number 11. Munkamulla, Denmark, 1135 AD. Munkamulla, which is in Odense, Denmark, is believed to be the oldest operating mill in Denmark and the entire world, with a history dating back to 1135. Originally, it was founded by Benedictine monks. This mill has been vital to Denmark's agricultural economy for nearly 900 years and has changed from being a medieval water mill to a modern flour production facility. With a name that translates to mean monk's mill, the Benedictine monks built in the 12th century along the Odense River, where they could be able to grind grain for their monastery and the surrounding community. The location here put it at the center of Denmark's medieval economy, and it soon became responsible for supplying flour to local bakers, farmers, and even the Danish royal court. During the Middle Ages, it became one of the most important mills in Denmark, as the country's grain trade expanded, so much of what remained in operation even after the Protestant Reformation, when monastic properties were taken over by the Danish crown. By the 17th and 18th centuries, Munkamulla had grown into a major industrial site, with modernized equipment that saw it grow from being a small monastic mill to a large-scale flour production facility. Over the centuries, it continued to undergo technological upgrades. Originally, it was powered by a water wheel, but then moved to steam power in the 19th century, and later added electric milling technology in the 20th. As Denmark industrialized, Munkamulla expanded its operations, and it kept its place as one of the country's most important producers of flour and grain products. And today, it continues to produce high-quality flour for export all across Denmark and Europe. Number 10. Schloss Johannesburg, Germany, 1100 AD. Schloss Johannesburg, which is in the Rheingau region of Germany, is one of the most important wineries in the world, and with its origins being traced back over 900 years, it's seen as the birthplace of Riesling wine. Sat on a hill overlooking the Rhine River, it was first established in the year 1100 when Benedictine monks founded a monastery on the site. To begin with, different grape varieties were grown, but in 1720, the entire vineyard was fully dedicated to Riesling, making Schloss Johannesburg the first single variety Riesling vineyard in the world. This also meant that it was seen as a hugely important and valued site and would be ruled by various noble families throughout history. In 1816, for example, after the fall of Napoleon, Schloss Johannesburg became part of the Austrian Empire before being transferred to the Duke of Nassau and then later the Prussian crown. But one of the most famous stories about it took place in 1775 with the accidental discovery of Spätlese, or late harvest wine. According to the legend, the messenger who was carrying the official permission to begin the grape harvest was delayed by several weeks. By the time the monks received their approval to pick the grapes, the fruit had already started to shrivel and develop noble rot. Instead of throwing them away, they continued with the harvest and found that the overripe grapes produced a rich and sweet wine. This unintentional discovery completely changed winemaking from then on, leading to the classification of late harvest wines, which are now among the most popular wines in Germany. Today, Schloss Johannesburg continues to be one of Germany's most prestigious wineries, producing world-class Rieslings, and where the grapes still benefit from the incredible conditions of the south-facing slopes. If you're in the region, you can visit the site too and have a chance to explore the cellars, taste the wines, and take in some amazing views of the countryside. Number 9. Weihenstephan Abbey, Germany, 1040 AD. Weihenstephan Abbey, which can be found in Freising, Bavaria, in Germany, is one of the most historically important monasteries in Europe, and after being built in the 8th century, it became a center for religion, agriculture, and brewing. Today, though, it's best known as the home of Bavarian state brewery Weihenstephan, which is the oldest continually operating beer brewery in the world. The abbey was founded in the year 725 by Saint Corbinian, who was a Benedictine monk from France. He built the monastery on a hill near the city of Freising, which was already an important religious center in Bavaria. The abbey quickly became a place for learning, agriculture, and craftsmanship, which helped with the region's wider development, and by the 9th and 10th centuries it was well known for its farming, winemaking, and brewing. Over the centuries, the brewery developed and refined its techniques. The monks experimented with different ingredients, fermentation methods, and storage techniques, and this helped to establish the foundations of German brewing laws, including the famous German Beer Purity Law of 1516, which said that beer could only be brewed using water, barley, and hops. The brewery was hugely successful, but it also found itself in the middle of changing times in Germany. Fires, plagues, and wars, the 30 Years' War in particular, damaged the monastery several times. But whenever this happened, the monks rebuilt and continued their brewing tradition. In 1803, however, during a period of secularization, the Bavarian government dissolved the monastery and its lands and operations were taken over by the state. This saw the end of the monks' involvement, but even though the abbey itself was no longer able to continue as a religious center, the brewery continued under state control. Today it remains owned by the state of Bavaria, and it honors its brewing heritage. Number 8. Pontificia Fonderia Marinelli, Italy, 1040 AD. The Pontificia Fonderia Marinelli, which is in Italy, is the oldest continually operational bell foundry in the world. Originally, it was established in the year 1040. This family-run business has been making bronze bells for nearly 1,000 years, and it's known for its incredible craftsmanship. At the time it opened in the medieval era, bell making was hugely important in Christian Europe. The Marinelli family perfected the lost wax casting method, which is a technique that has remained mostly unchanged for hundreds of years, and over the generations the foundry became well known for producing bells with great clarity, resonance, and durability. This led to it receiving one of the most prestigious honors in 1924, when Pope Pius XI granted it to Pontificia in recognition of the service to the Catholic Church. Since then, the foundries remain closely linked to the Vatican and has produced bells for St. Peter's Basilica, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and many of Italy's most famous churches and cathedrals. Now, to begin with, they create a clay core. That's a mold that's shaped using clay, and it's what forms the bell's internal structure. Then, a wax layer is added for decoration, with religious motifs, inscriptions, and patterns being sculpted into the wax at this stage. Then, an outer mold, also known as a false bell, is added that covers the wax and takes on the finer details of the design. Next, it's all heated, which removes all of the wax, and then the molten bronze is poured in. Once this is cooled, the mold is broken away, and this reveals the final bell that's polished and finely tuned to make sure it's got the perfect sound. Over the centuries, the company has made bells for cathedrals, monasteries, and historical sites all across Italy and Europe, and even for the United Nations and various basilicas in Latin America and the United States. Every single one of them is custom-made, with its size, tone, and design being chosen to match the spiritual importance of the location it's being created for. Today, the Marinelli family continues to operate the foundry in the same way that it has been for almost 10 centuries, and visitors are able to visit the foundry's museum, where they can learn much more about the history of bell making, see some of the ancient molds, and find out about the challenges of some of the foundry's most famous commissions. Moving on to number 7, Ichimonji Wasuke, Japan, 1000 AD. Ichimonji Wasuke, which opened in the year 1000, is Kyoto's oldest confectionery shop, and it specializes in aburimochi, which is a traditional grilled rice cake. Found near the Imamiya Shrine in the historic Kita ward of Kyoto, this shop has been serving visitors and locals for over 1,000 years. It opened during the Heian period, and it's remained a small family-owned business that has passed down its secret recipes and methods for over 40 generations. Over the centuries, this shop became a part of the traditions of going to temples and shrines in Kyoto, welcoming both commoners and the nobility. The name Ichimonji refers to the one-stroke symbol in Japanese, which represents simplicity, purity, and devotion, which are highly important values to communities in the city. There's a few things on the menu there, but it's the aburimochi that's most popular, and it's made by a process that's remained virtually unchanged since it first opened. To begin with, the shop's workers ground glutinous rice into a soft, chewy texture before shaping it into small, bite-sized pieces. Each mochi piece is skewered onto bamboo sticks, and at this stage it can be also dipped in holy water from a shrine. It's then lightly grilled over an open flame, giving it a slightly crispy golden brown surface. And once this is done, the skewers are dipped in a sweet white miso sauce, made from a secret family recipe that's been passed down for generations. The combination of smoky aroma, soft texture, and mildly sweet miso flavor makes this mochi a sweet treat that's deeply linked to Kyoto's history. The shop is, as a result, hugely busy during Kyoto's annual festivals like the Yasurai Festival, with the aburimochi being an important part of their spiritual experience. Even after surviving wars, natural disasters, and political changes, this place remains a small, family-run place like it's always been. And unlike many businesses that have been modernized, this shop has kept its traditional atmosphere, even to the point where guests still sit on tatami mats inside a wooden tea house. Number 6. The Royal Mint, United Kingdom, 886 AD. The Royal Mint is one of the oldest continually operating mints in the world, with a history dating back to the year 886, during the reign of King Alfred the Great. Over the past 1,100 years, it's played a role in shaping Britain's monetary system, producing coins, medals, and bullion for both the UK and countries across the globe. From medieval silver pennies to today's high-security banknotes and investment-grade gold, the Royal Mint has evolved with the times. But with the advent of digital currencies, there are questions about whether it'll still be around in 100 years. The origins of the mint can be traced back to the Anglo-Saxon period, when King Alfred decided to introduce a centralized minting system to standardize England's currency. In its earliest days, the coin production was decentralized, with a number of mints across England in major towns and cities that were able to produce official money. But probably in an attempt to exert more control over the country and the production of money, the king wanted everything to be done in just one place. By the 13th century, most coin production had been moved to the Tower of London, which became the main location of the Royal Mint for over 500 years. This location with the tower provided the highest level of security to prevent any theft, but it also meant that it was close to the monarchy, so it could easily be controlled by the leader. During the medieval period, English currency was mainly made of silver, with coins like the silver penny, groat, and noble being the most commonly used. But by the 16th century, the introduction of gold coins, including the sovereign and guinea, were used to show England's growing wealth and influence. By the 19th century, the Royal Mint had begun to serve the British Empire too, producing currencies for territories in India, Canada, Australia, and Africa. The gold standard, which was introduced in 1821, further ensured the importance of British currency on international trade. And after a couple of moves, the Royal Mint officially relocated to Wales in 1968 as the country moved to decimal currency. Currently, it produces billions of coins, as well as notes, bullion, and even medals and military honors, continuing to be essential to the operation of the British economy. Number 5. Monnaie de Paris, France, 864 AD. Monnaie de Paris, which was founded in the year 864, is the oldest mint in France and the longest-running institution of its kind in the world. For over 1,150 years, it's been responsible for producing France's currency, from medieval silver deniers to the modern euro, while also creating medals, decorations, and collectibles. Found along the Seine River in Paris, it was built when King Charles the Bald, the grandson of Charlemagne, issued the Edict of Pitre, which insisted upon the centralized production of coins in France. The mint expanded its operations as France grew in economic and political influence, and by the 13th and 14th centuries, gold coins became more commonplace, showing the kingdom's wealth and international connections. By the 17th century, under King Louis XIV, Monnaie de Paris became an essential part of France's financial and economic system. Huge investment in the facility saw it use more advanced metalworking and engraving techniques, and it was able to produce gold and silver coins that were recognized around the world for their quality and craftsmanship. It was then, in 1774, during the reign of Louis XVI, that Monnaie de Paris moved to its current location, which was a neoclassical building that was designed by Jacques Denis Antoine, and was then filled with skilled engravers, metalworkers, and artisans. During the French Revolution, the company produced revolutionary currency, which replaced the royal livre as France's official currency in 1803, under Napoleon Bonaparte, and it ensured that the mint would continue being the producer of the official currency. Further upgrades took place, like in the 19th century with the addition of steam-powered presses that allowed for the mass production of coins, and further into the 20th century it continued to evolve and would produce French francs, military medals, and commemorative coins. One of the biggest changes here, though, happened relatively recently in 1999 when France adopted the euro instead of the franc as part of the European Monetary Union. Monnaie de Paris was responsible for minting France's euro coins, which it still does to this day. But it's also meant that it's no longer the only facility in France that's allowed to create a currency that can be used in the country. It's relied on for more than money, though, and it's where the 2024 Olympic medals were made, as well as Legion of Honor medals, which were first introduced by Napoleon, and they're France's highest award for military personnel and civilians. Number 4. Staffelter Hof, Germany, 862 AD. Found in the Mosel Valley of Germany, Staffelter Hof is most likely the oldest continually operating winery in the world, with a documented history dating back to at least the 9th century. Located in Crove, near the Mosel River, the first mention of this family-run estate is dated to the year 862 in official records as part of a donation to the Benedictine Abbey of Stavelot, which is in present-day Belgium. At that time, monasteries were the major centers of agriculture, and monks cultivated vineyards in the fertile Mosel Valley, producing wine for religious purposes. The Mosel region was already very well known for its wines, particularly Riesling, which would later become the signature grape of the area, and for hundreds of years it became a popular vineyard to the surrounding region. Staffelter Hof was instead transferred to private ownership, which was the beginning of its time as a family-run winery. And despite political changes, wars, and economic difficulties, the estate continued to thrive, and it began to incorporate new techniques while preserving its centuries-old legacy. They have a broad approach to their winemaking, and it's one of the reasons why the winery has been able to survive through to modern times, because it's been able to pivot alongside tastes and trends. In the mid-20th century, for example, there was a massive drop in the popularity of sweet wines, and this forced them to focus more on dry and internationally appealing styles. Moving into the 21st century, it's a place that continues to adapt to the changing demands. To do this, the winery has completely eliminated the use of any chemical pesticides and herbicides, and instead uses a natural composting and cover crops to maintain the overall soil health. It may result in a reduced yield, but it shows how they're able to react with what will be able to be sold at a premium to modern wine drinkers, especially as by using the same cellars as they always have, there's no effect to the end quality of the wine they produce. By doing this, they'll likely be sharing Germany's rich history of winemaking with the world for decades or even centuries. Number 3. St. Peter Stiftskulinarium, Austria, 803 AD. Found within the historic St. Peter's Abbey in Salzburg, Austria, St. Peter Stiftskulinarium is the oldest restaurant in Austria and one of the oldest continually operating restaurants anywhere in the world. First opened in the year 803 during the reign of Charlemagne, it's closely tied to St. Peter's Abbey, which is one of Austria's oldest monasteries, and it was opened just over a century earlier in 696. During the medieval period, monasteries were places of hospitality and learning, and this restaurant took things to the next level by offering food to travelers passing through Salzburg. Throughout the Middle Ages, Salzburg became a thriving religious center, and the restaurant's reputation grew as it began to serve nobles, merchants, and church officials. By the 16th century, it had become a highly popular eatery, with meals that had been made from ingredients that were sourced from the monastery's gardens and local markets. During the Baroque era, Salzburg became a center of art, music, and culture, and St. Peter's Stift Culinarium became a favorite meeting place for the city's elite. The restaurant's connection to Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart is one of the most famous draws, as Mozart is supposed to have dined there, so even today it hosts Mozart dinner concerts that recreate 18th century Salzburg with candlelit dinners and live performances. Going to this restaurant really feels like stepping back in time. It's still within the ancient monastery walls, featuring arched ceilings, wooden beams, and candlelit dining halls. It's also split into different dining rooms, each with its own character, such as the Grand Baroque Hall, where events and concerts are held, the historic wine cellar, which is one of the oldest in Austria, a medieval-style dining room called the Stone Hall, and a stunning outdoor area called the Abbey Courtyard. Even though it's been around for more than 1,200 years, this doesn't mean that it keeps to the original recipes and menus, though. Instead, the chefs offer a light, fresh, and modern approach to classic Austrian dishes, with most ingredients like wild game and vegetables all sourced locally. This has meant that it's kept its place as one of the best places to eat in the city, and will likely be for a long time to come. Number 2. The Nishiyama Onsen Kyokan, Japan, 705 AD. Set in a stunning location in the mountains of the region of Yamanashi Prefecture in Japan, Nishiyama Onsen Kyokan holds the Guinness World Record of being the oldest continually operating hotel in the world. Having first opened in the year 705, the historic ryokan, which is a traditional Japanese inn, has been welcoming guests for over 1,300 years, offering a peaceful retreat that's built around a series of natural hot springs. It was the idea of Fujiwara Mahito, a descendant of the powerful Fujiwara clan during the reign of Emperor Monmu. Seeing the therapeutic benefits of the natural hot springs from the nearby mountains, he built the inn as a place of healing and relaxation for travelers, samurai, and noble families. For over 52 generations, his descendants have owned and operated the hotel, passing down their traditions and expertise. This lineage has made Kyokan the symbol of Japanese resilience, craftsmanship, and omotenashi, which is a high honor that means exceptional hospitality. The hot water springs, or onsen, come from the Hakuo Springs, and the hotel has several indoor and outdoor onsen baths, offering guests an authentic Japanese experience. Throughout its history, and because it became known as such a special place, Nishiyama Onsen Kyokan has hosted emperors, shoguns, samurai, and countless important historical figures. Even during the feudal era, many warlords and military leaders visited the inn to rest and relax. Stepping in, it's exactly what you'd expect from a traditional Japanese hotel, with tatami-matted rooms, shoji sliding doors, and fusuma panels. Everything was made from wood, like cypress, cedar, or bamboo, which are materials that age wonderfully over time, although they do have to be replaced. Each room overlooks the mountains and river, allowing guests to experience Japan's natural beauty. The food on offer, too, is on a different level, particularly the kaiseki cuisine, which is a multi-course Japanese dining tradition that highlights seasonal ingredients and artistic presentation. There's a huge focus on the traditional nature of the place, but that doesn't mean it's without modern features. The structure has been rebuilt and renovated a number of times over the years, and while it's kept its historic charm, you'll be able to make use of private onsen baths in some rooms, comfortable futons like you'll find in modern hotels, and even though you're in the mountains, you'll have access to Wi-Fi if you need it. The fact that this onsen has been able to continuously operate for over 1,300 years shows just how unique and special a place it is, and the way that even warring factions could visit and put their disagreements on hold while they were there shows how important a cultural site it's become. The Fujiwara family continues to honor this ancestral commitment to hospitality, and who's to say it won't still be there in another 52 generations' time. Number 1. Kongo-gumi, Japan, 578 AD. Of all the companies in the world that are still in operation in one form or another, the one that takes the record by quite some margin is Kongo-gumi. First set up as far back as the year 578, the Japanese construction company operated independently for over 1,400 years, making it the longest-running construction firm in the world. It specialized in Buddhist temple architecture, and even though it was absorbed into a larger corporation in 2006, the company continues to operate as a subsidiary of Takamatsu Construction Group, where it's able to hold on to its centuries-old expertise in traditional Japanese carpentry. According to stories from the time, the company began when Shotoku Taishi, a Japanese prince, invited 3 skilled carpenters from the Korean kingdom of Baekje to go to Japan. Their challenge was to build Japan's first official Buddhist temple, which was the Shintenoji in Osaka. After they had designed the plan, one of the carpenters, Kongo Shinko, decided to stay in Japan and begin a construction business that was dedicated to the temple building, and it amazingly remained family-run, passing down from generation to generation. Their work, as a result, can be seen throughout the most famous periods of Japanese history, and with ancient joinery techniques that required no nails that mean structures could withstand earthquakes and last for centuries, these techniques were used in temples such as the Horyuji, which is one of the world's oldest wooden buildings. During feudal Japan and the samurai era from around the 12th century, Buddhist temples were built all over the country as centers of power and education. Kongo Gumi, known as the best, was able to secure exclusive contracts with Buddhist sects, feudal lords, and the imperial court. The Meiji Restoration from the 19th century saw the abolition of the feudal system, and government secularization meant that there wasn't much to make in temple construction, so during this time Kongo Gumi was forced to diversify, with more of a focus on non-religious construction projects, including schools and residences. The 20th century saw the company struggle with material shortages and bombing damage during the wars, but post-war reconstruction efforts provided new opportunities for construction companies, and Kongo Gumi adapted to modern techniques, but with a focus on traditional carpentry skills. Even though today it's a subsidiary with such a long history of traditional craftsmanship behind it, the company is still the go-to for specialized woodworking and traditional designs. And with skills like these being lost in favor of modern techniques, it's one of the very few like it that still remain. Click here to watch our previous video on the top 15 coolest corporate headquarter buildings. Thank you to our channel members.